How about now? Can you hear me now? No? Aha. You can hear me. Ah, finally. I just, I went out and I came back. I shut off the Bluetooth. I turned it back on. I shut off my Bluetooth earpieces. I went back and forth. Wow. Okay. Okay. Is it good? Clear? I was asking earlier, when did I meet you? A long time ago. No? I think so. And forgive me, where did I meet you? Are you Filipina or Hello Kitty? Where are you? From Utah. Oh, okay, okay. Are you Filipina? In Utah? 15 people. Come in, come in. Don't skip, people. Come in the house. Yeah, originally. Okay, okay, okay. I remember. I remember you telling me you're living in Utah. Where are you near? Are you near Salt Lake? Or come in, come in. 10 people. I saw up to 15 there. Oh, okay, okay. How's the weather there? Springtime now? Enjoying some warm weather? 11 people in the house. Don't forget the thumbs up, the like there, 11 of you. Kyle, how did you know? Did you read my description? A good question, Kyle. I can tell you what the Navy was like. I'll tell you my whole story. Ah, cool. Well, here, let me go back to high school first. I'm about to graduate from high school back in 1980. And all the branches of the military came to my high school. They literally landed on our football field. A Army helicopter landed on our football field, and they unloaded all the equipment for the kiosks, the tents, the tables, etc. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all around the football field. And of course, during lunch break, I believe, hoorah, from Dubai. We had like an hour. I think they extended our lunch, and we went out on the football field, and everyone rotated around the kiosks, and the recruiters were doing their best to recruit the graduates, soon to be graduates, including myself. And I remember seeing a group of guys up in the grandstands of our football field, and they were SEALs, come to find out. And the SEALs had their tent set up, or their kiosk set up. And they had a diver and a tank, and he had his breathing apparatus on, and he was using his finger to draw on the glass of this tank to communicate with us. I just remember this. And I thought, whoa, I've always heard about these guys. And some guy in the grandstand said, I think I asked him, so I forget what I asked him, but his response was, I must have asked him, what's the percentage of dropouts in the Navy SEALs? And he said, 80%. And I thought, uh-oh, it doesn't sound very promising. And so I never took the bait back then. And I ended up chasing girls for a year after high school till I was 19. My dad offered me a job at General Dynamics Electronics. This is in San Diego, California. And you're still listening, Kyle? Just to make sure you're still there. Okay. So I ended up taking a job. I realized, I want to buy a car. I want to do things. I want to be independent now. And in order to do that, you need money. Hey, Mike and Venus. Is that Mike or is that Venus? So I'm telling my Navy story, Mike or Venus, whoever you are. And I accepted a job from my dad. Hey, Mike. ¿Cómo está? And went to work for General Dynamics Electronics in San Diego, making $4 an hour, $4.25. And full time, started bringing home a paycheck, bought a car, started taking trips to Yosemite, and I was into rock climbing when I was 19. I actually learned about rock climbing through General Dynamics. One of the newsletters they had out on the guard desk, the guard shack. And I went to a basic rock climbing course and learned the ropes, literally, and got into rock climbing when I was 19. That was 1981. That began my climbing career, my 30-plus year climbing career. So fast forward, I'm 19, working full time. I met my first wife at General Dynamics. She was from Bangkok, Thailand. I had 2 children with her. Those are my eldest children. My son's 41 right now, and my daughter's 37. Unfortunately, I separated from their mom in 2000. And let me back up 1 year before 2000. In 1999, I actually separated from their mom in 1998. So I was living on my own up in Tehachapi, California, up in the mountains. And I was online like I am now. I wasn't live streaming. And I ended up finding a chat room and ended up meeting a lady in New Jersey. And we were doing the long distance relationship. Never met her at that point. And eventually, let me back up. Before I went to meet her, I ended up meeting another lady in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I chased her for about a year. In the process of that relationship, she ended up bringing home a brochure. I don't know where she got it. It was a recruitment brochure, military recruitment. And it was about a program called APG School, or Advanced Pay Grade. Char! Hi, dear. ¿Cómo está? And I filed it away in my suitcase, or wherever I put it. But I discovered it in my suitcase when I came back from Louisiana with my tail between my legs, back to living with my mom in Poway, California, at 36 years old, sleeping on her couch. And eventually she literally kicked me out of the house, motivated me to get off my butt and go back to work. I was a civilian paramedic. That was my job at that time. I never covered that, but I became a paramedic. I left General Dynamics and I became a paramedic. So I was working as a paramedic in Louisiana, and I went back to California with no job. And I found that brochure in my suitcase in a pocket. And I always wondered, what is this? So I opened it again and I read it, and it was APG school, or advanced pay grade. What the heck? And it says, visit your local recruiter. And here I am, I'm almost 37 years old, and I thought, you can still join the military? At my age? Apparently you can, according to this brochure, where they take your civilian experience and apply it directly into the military. So they don't have to send you to school, spend the money to train you, for example, to be a corpsman or a medic, because you're already one. Yeah, you would think. But wait, there's more. So I went to a recruiter's. I decided, I looked up, where's there a recruiter? And it was nearby. I was living in, where was I at the time? I don't know where I was. I was at my mom's, living in Poway. And I went to a recruiter's trailer, literally a trailer, in a parking lot of a supermarket. And it was Army on one side of the what the heck is the word? Army on one side, Navy on the other. So I went into the Army side. Curious, what's this APG school? He said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a paramedic. He goes, oh, well, we can make you a medic in the Army as a reservist. Part-time job in the military. And he did his best to, suck me in, but I didn't want to make any decisions. So I didn't. I grabbed the paperwork and I left. Thank you very much. I think I'm being too loud. So I went, hey, Arngel, Nangwoon. Arngel Nagwoon. Anyways, so then I went over to the other side of the hallway. That was what I was looking for, hallway. And I went to the Navy side. Same thing. Am I too loud? Okay, I guess I was too loud. I had a feeling. So, hey, Miss Judith Omagulai. Yeah, sitting on the edge of your seat. So I went to the Navy side, and he said the same thing. What do you do for a living? I said, I'm a paramedic. Oh, we can make you a corpsman. And I was like, I've heard that word before. It's a medic in the Navy. They provide medical support for the Marines as well, the Marine Corps, if you didn't know that. The Marines don't have their own medical department. The Navy is their medical department. As a matter of fact, the Marines are under the Navy's command. They don't like to admit that, but they are. They've always been. So I said, okay, well, and he did his best to, make me, or, sign that day. And I said, no, I'm not making any decisions. So I took paperwork and I went home. And I thought about it. And I thought, well, if I'm going to choose one, it would probably be the Navy, because my dad, I always saw this plaque on my dad's bedroom wall, and it showed the years of his service. He did a 4-year stint in the Navy. And he didn't talk about it very much, but I knew about it. And so I thought, well, and I always wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Well, I thought about it back there in high school. It was just, what did I have the most influence from? And it was the Navy. At least I heard about it. So I decided, part-time job. I asked a few more questions. And it was a part-time job in the Navy, 1 weekend per month, 1 Saturday, Sunday, and then a 2-week stint throughout the year. Sometime throughout the year, the Navy will need your service for a 2-week window. And I was working full-time eventually as a paramedic. I went back to work as a paramedic up in Tehachapi, California. Now I'm back to Tehachapi. And I, I ended up meeting the recruiter at a Denny's up in Del Mar, California. And I signed my name on the dotted line to join the United States Navy Reserves as a corpsman. Coming in as a third-class petty officer, not as a recruit, but I had to go to boot camp. Everybody goes through boot camp, no matter how old you are or what rank you are. And pending me finishing what they call BMRs, or basic military requirements. And it's just it's a thick book, and you got to go through all the questions and study it and then take a test. And then you go to boot camp. And they, have the requirements in boot camp. So I went to boot camp. Guess where I went to boot camp? I went back to Louisiana, this close to the lady that I was chasing back there. And it wasn't a good experience with her. But I ended up literally next door to this lady that I was chasing. And so I finished boot camp, and I started doing my Navy drills 1 weekend per month. I'm reading your comment, Kyle. And I was working as a paramedic in Delano, California, which is like 30 miles down the mountain from Tehachapi. And I eventually got online, and that's where I met my current wife. She's from the Philippines, but she was living in New Jersey. So I was liaisoning with her from Tehachapi, California to New Jersey. I eventually made the decision to get married again and to become a daddy again, because she had never been married, never had any children. And she was getting older. She was 29, and here I was 37. Back to the age cutoff. Hey, Jekyll's, welcome back, brother. And Durble McBurble. And I eventually made the decision to get married again and become a daddy. So I helped my to-be wife, my fiance, to move to California. And she was living with me in Tehachapi. She was working as a nurse. She's a RN, got her bachelor's of science in nursing. And so I helped her get a job in Bakersfield, California, while I was working 30 miles north up I-99 in Delano as a paramedic. 1 weekend per month, together, we would go to my Navy duty in Oxnard, California, and work Saturday, Sunday. She would stay at a hotel and go shopping at the mall or whatever while I was at work. And then in the evening, we would go to dinner together. Normally, the military would put you up in a hotel room with a roommate, another Navy, squid, and we would room together. But I would nix that and say, cancel that reservation. I'm going to get one of my own with my wife. And so that was our weekend together, that 1 weekend per month. And then 2 weeks throughout the year, usually they had a need at Navy Balboa Hospital in San Diego. So I would take the long drive down to San Diego and work my 2 weeks, stay in a hotel that they provided, and stay with the roommate. She didn't come with me. And I would do 2 weeks down in San Diego. So that's how I ended up in the United States Navy at 37. The cutoff age at that time was 37 years old. And today, I met a guy at the barbershop, and he was a recruiter, and he corrected me. He says, the cutoff age, I knew the cutoff age went up 5 years to 42. And he corrected me and he says, no, it's 43 now. And I went, no kidding. So for anybody out there listening, if you're yet to be 43 years old, you can join the military. If you have some kind of skill set, they'll take that and try to apply it into the military. And you'll go through the same thing I did. You'll come in at a higher rate. If you have a bachelor's degree or above, you can become an officer and a commissioned officer. So that's how that works. And if you Google that, you'll find out that, Alexa, how long has the military been recruiting civilians into the military? That isn't the right question.
The U.S. military has been recruiting volunteers since 1973, when it became an all-volunteer force.
Alexa.
Before that.
Go ahead, Alexa. I think
How can I help?
Go ahead and finish. I interrupted you.
I didn't have anything else to add.
Yes,
You're all set.
Okay. Alexa, how long has the military been using civilian experience and bringing them into the military?
The military has been leveraging civilian expertise since the Continental Army in 1775. The modern civilian acquired skills program lets folks with
See there?
specialized training
Since
skip basic instruction and
1775.
start at advanced levels in over 40
Alexa.
fields.
Stop. So there you go. It's been going on since the beginning of the United States military. And I didn't know that. And you probably didn't either. So they just had different names for it then. The one that I joined was Advanced Pay Grade. I don't think they have that name anymore. It's called something else. Oh yeah, you're way past, Mike. Hold on a second. Hold on one second. Let me clean up, Jordan. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Sorry about that. I guess I'm being too loud because he's right next door trying to sleep. So anyhow, that's how I ended up. Oh, and I signed a 8-year contract. You guys can still hear me okay? Okay, good. Yeah, so I signed an 8-year contract, 1999 to 2007. In 2000, well, we all know what happened in 2001, 9/11. And that started the cogwheel turning to deploy the military. And when I did my next drill duty, some of my teammates shipmates were asking me, hey, MacKay, did you get the phone call? Did you get the phone call? And I'm like, what phone call? And they're like, people are getting deployed. And I went, no, I haven't heard a thing. Yeah, so-and-so just got the phone call and so-and-so. And I'm thinking, not that I know of, I haven't received a phone call yet. But then I started getting nervous. I thought, holy crap. So again, the Navy provides medical support for the Marines. And I had already volunteered myself to go to a school to get additional training as a corpsman, as a field corpsman. And they learn how to provide medical support out in the field with the Marines. So wherever there's people, there's a need for medical support. Whether it's a football game, a war, or a drag race, there's always an ambulance on standby or some kind of medical support on standby. And it's the same with the military. Wherever there's people, there's going to be medical support somewhere nearby. In the case of the Marines, the Navy corpsmen are embedded with them. So we get to wear their uniform, their field working uniform, and obtain for example, the digital cami. So I had the entire uniform when I got home, but I ended up getting the phone call in 2004 because apparently the reason why I hadn't got the phone call yet was they screwed up my paperwork. This is what I was told at the Department of Defense, DOD in wherever it's located, Washington, D.C., Maryland, wherever it is. And they eventually corrected that mistake, and my name came up, and I got the phone call in May of 2004. I was washing my ambulance as a Jekyll's duck. Was that Jordan? I have one of your sons in my prayer book. Oh, awesome. Yes, it was. Thank you, Jekyll's. If you want to put somebody on a prayer list, put Jason on your prayer list, not Jordan. Jason's my eldest. He's the 41-year-old. So anyhow, I was washing my ambulance up in Delano at the car wash. It was a private ambulance company, Delano Ambulance, owned by a husband and wife. And they had a car wash across the street from the quarters that we stayed in. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jekyll's. Gosh, great memory. And I had a flip phone. I had an Android flip phone, whatever brand it was. And I remember answering it. And it was a young guy's voice, and he had identified himself as whatever his rank was from Point Mugu Naval Air Station. And I went, whoa, that's my drill, my drill station. And he said, are you on a secure line? First time I heard that outside the television. And I said, I'm on a cell phone. He says, can you get to a landline? And I went, oh, landline's the secure line. Okay. So I said, yeah, I'm going to have to call you back. He said, just call me back to this number. So I went across the street, stopped what I was doing, and went over to the owners that were in the communications center, dispatch center, and asked the wife, Patsy, hey, Patsy, my Navy unit just called me. They want me to call back on a landline. Can I use one? She says, yeah, use the one in the back room. So I went to the back room and I closed the door and got a piece of paper and pencil and called him back, and he started giving me the information, telling me that I was getting deployed. And I had 3 weeks to pack my bags and report to, where did I report to? I was living in Bakersfield, actually. We moved from Tehachapi up the mountain down into Bakersfield. And where was I reporting to? Might have been Point Mugu. It was either there or March Air Force Base. I think it was March Air Force Base. Anyways, and then I ended up staying in country, that's the USA, for just about 2 months where we prepared and got everything ready. I ended up meeting the unit that I was being deployed with. It was the 123 Marines out of Houston, Texas. I ended up getting flown back to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina to start the processing. They, again, imagine this. They lost my paperwork in Camp Lejeune. I ended up staying there for a whole month waiting as people rotated past me and being shipped off. Eventually, they got that squared away, and they're now sending me back to Houston, Texas to meet up with my unit. When I get there, they said, oh, they're not here anymore. They're in 29 Palms, California. I said, really? It's like, I just left Bakersfield. Yeah, just hang out. Don't worry. We'll get you a plane ticket and we'll contact you when it's ready. So I visited my friend there in Galveston, and we went sailing for the weekend. And then the next day or two, I got the plane ticket and went to the airport, flew to wherever they flew me to. Oh, LAX, I think. And then a bus picked me up, a white bus, Marine Corps bus, and took me to 29 Palms, which is basically Joshua Tree National Monument, a big rock climbing destination, which I'm very familiar with. I, again, was in the rock climbing community for over 30 years. And Joshua Tree is a big destination. It's right next to Joshua Tree. 29 Palms is, out there in the high desert. So that's where I met up with my unit. I ended up walking into a room to meet my superiors, basically. I have no idea who they are, because again, I'm a reservist, and this is just a Marine Corps unit, Marine Corps battalion, who I am not associated with. I've never even met them before, never even heard of them until then. So I went into a room, and there's like, I'm going to say like 12, 13 people, all in chairs, sitting behind these tables. And there's one chair out in the middle of the room, and that chair was for me. And I thought, oh, this doesn't feel good. Like I'm being interrogated. Basically, it was just an interview, and it turned out to be a very friendly welcome to the battalion. This is who we are. They introduced themselves by name. There was everybody from the commanding officer down to the higher enlisted officers, first class petty officers. I ended up being a second class petty officer when I was in Iraq. And they began to tell me, this is who we are, what we do, and where we're going. And that was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm curious as to where are we going? He said, we're going to a forward operating base, a FOB, called FOB Heat, spelled H-I-T, pronounced Heat, in the Al-Anbar province, Iraq. It's considered to be the most heavily mortared and rocketed FOB in the theater at this time. They said that word for word. And I went, no. That's when I had no idea how to respond to that. My heart went into my throat, and I thought, what do I do? What do I say? And they immediately broke the ice and said, listen, you're not the only one going there. And they looked at it, the one guy speaking, looked at everybody from end to end and said, we're all going there with you. A lot of us have never been deployed before, so you're not alone. We're doing this together. We got each other's back. The goal is to do our job. I learned this. This was a perfect memory. There's two things that the military does that are of utmost importance in every branch of the military. You do your job, whatever it may be. You get trained, and you get trained very well at your job. I mean, we're talking elite athlete level preparation for some of them. And the second priority is to get you guys home. That's what the military does. They do their job, and their priority, the command's priority, is two things: to train them to the best, and to get them home. That's it. That was my priority when I went to Iraq, was to do my job and to get home. That was it. It just happened to be a very, very dangerous place to be trying to perform my medical duties. And everybody else that had a job, a skill set, they were put into a very dangerous place to try to do their job. And once we got there, we were always looking forward to the next priority, which was getting home. And that's what we all planned and talked about, was the job, and then what it's going to be like when we get home. What we all missed. Amazing what things were brought to my head and everyone else's as to what we missed when we were over there. You know what one of the most common responses was when we were all together at night? We talked about porcelain toilet seats. I'm serious. Everybody couldn't wait to sit on a porcelain toilet seat again. And we all made us laugh, and I thought, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Gosh, what it's going to be like to be able to sit on a porcelain toilet seat. What they had there were outhouses. And the Iraqis actually had holes in the ground. They had those, but nobody used them. But we had porta-johns, like 15 of them, all in a line. They had overseas foreign workers that emptied the porta-johns, took it out to the gray water pits, the evaporation fields. I know it was. We missed toilet seats. Amazing. Sitting on those cold porta-john seats and getting mortared and rocketed while you got your pants around your ankles. True story. Happened to me. Raised my hand. About blew that porta-john over while I was in it. I literally popped the door open with my leg, kicked it open, and ran as I'm pulling my pants up. I guess that's where the term "scared the you know what" out of you comes from. But we had a routine. We were all to gather together at a single point and then do a head count afterwards, and everyone gets accounted for, and then we call in the CCC, the Communications Command Center, which was just a landline that was down to the other end of the building. We had a phone, a dial-up phone, and we would call them and give them a head count and make sure everybody was accounted for after the mortar barrage. Yeah, it was a horrible place to be for 7 months. Yeah, it was. Did I expect? Nobody expects. Well, maybe some do. Depends on your job, your skill set. But as to looking forward to going to war. But no, I didn't join the Navy in anticipation of doing that. I kind of knew in the back of my head that it was possible, maybe somewhere, sometime, but I never thought about it. And then when 9/11 happened, nobody expected that. And then I realized, okay, I think something's going to happen. I actually had to stop school. I was pursuing my nursing career. I made a decision to pursue nursing, which wasn't my first idea. I wanted to be a physician assistant, a PA, but I decided to take some nursing prerequisites, and that came to a sudden halt. Matter of fact, the 2-week annual training, that's what it's called. The 2 weeks that the Navy, the military has you as a reservist is called AT, annual training. I was going to Ketchikan, Alaska. I had signed up for a stint in Ketchikan, Alaska, providing medical support for a military slash civilian building project. They were building roads between islands up there in the peninsula of Alaska. And I was going to go up there and provide medical support for 2 weeks. And that order was actually in process. It was emailed to my commanding officer. It was a lady, and all she had to do was sign it off and send me back the approval. And I got the phone call before that got approved. So my school came to an end. My annual training came to an end. I never went to Ketchikan. I ended up going to Iraq for 7 months. From beginning to end, it was a total of around 10 months. Spent around almost 2 months in 29 Palms, getting ready, giving immunizations, starting the anthrax series. Yes, I was part of that. And then eventually we left and flew to Germany where they refueled, and then we flew into Kuwait, and then eventually hung out in Kuwait in tents, in a tent city for about, I don't know how many days. Air conditioning, thank God. And then hopped on a helicopter and had the most wildest roller coaster ride in a helicopter at about 100 feet off the ground from Kuwait to Al Anbar, the air base there that the U.S. took over. And then we got shipped by vehicles to the FOB, and that was my home. If you walked around the barbed wire at my base, it was 1/8 of a mile. 1/8 of a mile was the diameter of the circle, the barbed wire that I lived on for 7 months. The Marines figured out that if you ran around the perimeter of the FOB, it was 1 mile, so they could do their PT. 1/8 of a mile if you walked around the perimeter. That's how small. And that was home. It was like being a caged animal while they launched mortars and rockets at us. Yeah. I'm going to read some of your replies here. I think you guys weren't commenting very much. But you remember 9/11, you were working at Dell Computers, having breakfast, came on the news, yeah. Yeah, everyone kind of has that same visual memory. I was a paramedic up in Delano. I was going home. I worked 7P to 7A, and I was sleeping in. And around, what time was that? Around 7-ish or 9-ish in the morning when the second plane hit, somewhere around there. And I remember one of the young EMTs, different EMT basics and intermediates, and then paramedics. I worked at the paramedic level, and then I had EMTs as my partners. Anyways, some EMT came into my room and said, "MacKay, Gary, you got to get up. You got to see this. You got to see this." And I'm like trying to wipe the sleep out of my eyes, like, what? And he said, "You got to see this." So I got up and walked out into the living room, and everybody's gathered around the TV. Same story. And I sat there and watched and just went, holy. Yeah, it was wild. Yeah, crazy. So yeah, and then I had the option of staying in 20 years. So from 37 to 57, if I had stayed in and done 20 years, I would have retired in 1999. I'm sorry, 2019. What am I saying? 1999. That's when I joined. 2019, 1999 to 2019, 20 years. I would have had a retirement. But when I got back from Iraq was, I could say without any reservation, Iraq scared me. And the rumor was that the unit that I was working with, the battalion, 123 Marines, were going to Afghanistan after Iraq. And I went, I can't do this. I was 42 years old when I went to Iraq. I was a new husband, and I became a new daddy a month after I got home to my 20-year-old now. He'll be 21 in May. She was 8 months pregnant when I got home. I got the ultrasound in an email while I was on a laptop next to the Euphrates River in Iraq. Yep. Finding out that she was pregnant. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we conceived our son at a hotel room at 29 Palms. True story. Yep. We had some R&R one weekend, and it was a random 50% of the people were going to stay back and work, and 50% were going to go out on leave. And my name wasn't chosen, and I was going to stay back and work. And I thought, oh. So I pleaded with one of my fellow corpsmen and said, is there any chance you can give up your spot? And he did. And I thought, whoa. So I got on the phone, called my wife. Honey, come on down. Get a hotel room. I'll meet you there. So she did. She drove however many hours from Bakersfield up and over the mountain down into 29 Palms. And I met her at a hotel room. Yeah. Yeah. That's where the term war babies comes from. Well, don't quote me on that. When soldiers are about to go to war, they may not come home. So what do? They make babies. And it's exactly what happened to me. It's what I decided, you know what? I'm newly married. I married her to have a child, she's never had a child before. She wanted to become a mom. Well, if I don't come home, that ain't going to happen. So we better do it now. So we did. And she got pregnant. Yeah, I mean, that's how it happens. That makes sense, doesn't it, Mike? The soldiers, they're saying their goodbyes, leaving on the bus or on the plane, and I'm leaving on a jet plane. That song is exactly that story. It's about a man that's leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'm going to be back again. Yep. That's exactly what that song is about. Yeah. Mike, there's a term in the Philippines called AFAM, yeah, to mean any foreigner. Looked it up, yes, a foreigner assigned in Manila. Is that really what it means? That's awesome. It sounds like the military. Yep. That's where the term Joe came from, right, Mike? Hey, Joe. G.I. Joe. That was World War II. MacArthur. That's why all the Filipinos call the Americans Joe. Yep. G.I. Joe. If you recall, Mike, I'm married to a Filipina. You probably already know that. You see my cuchara and tinador over there? You think? Terry, thanks for coming in. Yeah, I wish I could have. I wished I hadn't have had that. Well, it's kind of a catch-22. I survived Iraq, and because of that, it makes great campfire stories. I got all kinds of, not so many stories from Iraq. It was the most boring camp out of my life, interrupted by moments of chaos. But I do have some stories to tell about it. But as far as, do I want to go back and do that again? No. No, that was just too much. It's very, And heartburn was the most incredible heartburn I've ever experienced. There was another thing that came close to that. I'll tell you about it. But was the first 3 months of Iraq. It was just horrible. Couldn't sleep, woke up with it all day long, went to bed with it again. It just was constant. But then eventually you got used to it. And then you started a routine around it. And then it went away. It did. That nervousness went away until you got into a vehicle or in a 7-ton truck and started driving down the road. Then it came back. That was horrible. You're helpless. There's no defense to an IED. A vehicle running over an improvised explosive device. And I never experienced one. Not directly. Indirectly, out at the gate, which was about an eighth of a mile away from where our buildings were. Out at the gate, an IED, a vehicle-borne IED, VB IED, went off at the gate. And that rocked I can't, unless you've ever been around ordnance or explosions, there's no really way to explain what it's like. The barometric change in the air, it's a sound wave that just comes rolling through, blows open everything, caves in windows. They didn't have any windows. They had 3/4 inch plywood in all what were windows. Those things got blown in. It was horrible. Absolutely horrendous. You end up on your face in the dirt, literally, and you don't have any idea how you got there. It happened so quickly that you don't even have a recollection of how you went from a standing position on your face, looking at your partner who's also on his face, looking at each other with the deer in the headlight look like, holy shit, where did that come from? And literally waiting for the dust to settle. And then getting up and trying to get back to where you're supposed to meet so they can do a head count and account for everybody. Yeah, Well, the videos make, everyone do the wow factor. But it's hard, you can't explain what it's like to be there. And I don't wish that on anybody. It's horrible. It's beyond, somebody said over there, if you hear the explosion, you're halfway there. And I thought about it, it's like, oh, he had explained it. He says, if you can hear it, you're still alive. Think about it. If you didn't hear it and you're near it, you ain't there anymore. So to hear it and to feel it, it's a good thing. Yeah. But what a concept, It's like somebody figured that out. Some young Marine got involved in I don't know how many IED explosions, and he's the one that came up with that. Or someone told him, if you hear it, you're halfway there. Yeah. Bilbo Baggins. I used to read, speaking of, I'm off the subject all of a sudden. I used to read the J.R. Tolkien's trilogy to my now wife when I was dating her over the phone. True story. When we would talk, her in New Jersey and me in California, I would read The Hobbit to her, and she'd end up falling asleep and snoring on the phone. And that's when I knew it was time to quietly put the phone down. Call her later. Zanina, ¿cómo está? She's too low back there in the bedroom. Yeah, LDR in the same country. Exactly. Oh, you mean with people up on the panel, Jekyll's? Well, where are you, Mike? Are you back in the States? Are you? Back in, where are you from? Texas? Oh, the panel. You know, the panel can be fun, but at the same time, it's a different animal. It's a different, what's the word? Dynamic. And sometimes I don't get to be the host. You have to entertain everybody. Yeah, that too. But you vet obviously who you're going to have up on the panel. But yeah, been there, did that, tried it, and it's a different animal. Marcus Aurelius, welcome back. I remember you. Oh, you're in Illinois. Oh, but dang. We have relatives in what ville is it? Her uncle Tito is in somethingville. What the heck? I can't think of it. I know. Well, we still do, Jekyll's. It comes up. Military, Word of God, and what's the other one? Emergency medicine. Naperville. No, not Naperville. It's Romeoville. Do you know Romeoville? Are you near there by any chance? Yeah, we visited Romeoville a few times. Hang out there. We're usually, you're in Ottawa. Wait. Oh, you mean Ottawa, Illinois? I didn't know there was an Ottawa, Illinois. I've been to Ottawa, Canada. You can indirectly, Rick. He's there in the very beginning in Genesis. Yeah, Romeoville. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know there was an Ottawa, Illinois. It's in regards, I'm jumping back and forth, Rick. It's in regards to the Trinity. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's referenced in Genesis, which refers to Jesus Christ indirectly. Yeah, in Isaiah especially. Yeah, he's mentioned, obviously. It's referring to Christ. Isaiah 53, is it? Or, anyways. Where in Genesis, when he's creating the heavens and the earth, it talks about we. It uses that plural. Terry Schomer is from Cook County. Oh, Ottawa's about 75 miles southwest of Chicago. Okay. Sorry, I'm moving the camera up and down, not keeping myself centered there. LaSalle. Speaking of Illinois, I met a family from Illinois. They were from Peoria, they used to have a picture on their on their wall in their home. And it was the city they lived in, and I forget. I think it might have been Peoria. But anyways, I ended up falling in love with, if you want to call it that, the daughter, and thought, you know what, if this goes right, I wouldn't mind marrying this girl, you know, when we get older type thing. And I was in 11th grade and she was in 9th grade at the time. And she was going to a junior high while I was in high school. Anyways, they were from Illinois. The whole family moved. They were in a musical family. Dad was a music director. All the kids played music. I was a drummer. One of the boys was a drummer, and so on and so forth. So yeah, the daughter, I ended up dating the daughter, and she ended up finding another guy and broke my heart. And then I went to her wedding. She invited me to her wedding. So I didn't go to the wedding, but I went to the reception at her house. And she ended up inviting two of her friends from Illinois to attend the wedding. And they were twins, and they were drop dead gorgeous. She set me up with these two twins at the reception at her house. And I had literally a twin on each arm. I was walking around the party with the twins on each arm. So it turned out okay after all. But I didn't marry any of the twins. Wow, you started as a drummer? You did, Mike? Oh, I'll be dang. Cool. Mac. Yeah, Mac Daddy. Yeah, I started in junior high school in 7th grade. My brother turned me on to drums, and then I ended up formally taking intermediate band in junior high school, and then went to high school and joined the marching band and did the orchestra, and et cetera, et cetera. So, how do you get a drummer off your porch? No, I'm not. I don't even want to know. I can actually answer that, but I'm not going to. Pay for the pizza. I was thinking of something else. So, where were we? We talked about my how I started my military career at 37 years old. I was 45 when I left. 2007 was my end of service, my EOS. Matter of fact, I've got my card that they gave me, my medical card, official DOD, Department of Defense medical card, in case I got captured and imprisoned, like a lot of good that card would do. I got that card still. And the last military ID card that I was issued before I got out. So I left the military in 2007. I left emergency medicine in 2008. That was almost 20 years ago. Unbelievable. Hoorah, geez. Praise God for the military. Navy, crazy lab. You just missed my whole story. How I started, where I ended up, and how I got out. Here, I wear this because my name, if you don't know, the name of my YouTube channel is Doc. Doc is what's the correct word? A title that the United States Marines call their medics. Doc. Hey, Doc. Instead of saying medic, they yell doc. So anybody, whether you're a doctor or a corpsman or whatever, a dentist, even a dentist, if you're working what we call green side with the Marines, if you're with the Navy, you're blue side, for obvious reasons. If you're assigned to the Marines, providing medical support for them, you're green side. They're going to call you doc because you wear the Navy emblem on their cover. So that's what I ended up wearing the entire 7 months, and a very similar haircut, by the way, when I was over in Iraq with the same matching uniform. No, Crazy Lab. I was a corpsman. I was a enlisted officer in the United States Navy. There's commissioned officers, there's enlisted officers. It's kind of a hierarchy. Commissioned are above, the enlisted are below, are under them. The commissioned are in charge, and we're under them. It's been that way ever since 1770, what was it? 76, 75? Whenever the United States Navy was formed. You graduated in 96. Dad asked what you were going to do. Said not much. He dropped me off with the recruiter and told me to pick one. I didn't leave for another 2 months. I had to walk 6 miles home. That's what your dad did to you. What did I do when I retired from the military? Good question. I was a civilian paramedic the whole time I was in the military. Except when I went to Iraq, of course, I had to do that duty for 7 months. Actually, a total of 10 months. But my civilian job the whole time was a civilian paramedic. So when I got home, I actually applied for a job here in South Jersey. My wife sent me, I either talked to her via email or on a landline or a phone. And she told me, submit your resume. I was like, why? Where? Who? She sent me an email. It was from the Atlanticare Regional Medical Center here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And she said, there's 2 openings for a paramedic. Apply for it. Her aunt told her, tell Gary to put his resume in. And she gave me the link, and I went there and I submitted my resume while I was in a building on a laptop next to the Euphrates River. Gosh, I can't speak. At Fob Heat in the Al Anbar province. And I ended up getting a job. They offered me the job while I talked to HR, Human Resources, while I was in Iraq. She couldn't believe it. She's like, are you really in Iraq? I said, yes, I am. She said, oh my gosh, well, get home safe. And when you get home, get a hold of me and we'll start the hiring process. And I was like, whoa, thank you very much. So I landed a job while I was in Iraq. So when I got back, continuing my story, when I got back from Iraq, 2005, I went to work as a paramedic here in Atlantic County, New Jersey. And then my military contract expired in 2007. I decided to let it expire instead of renewing it and doing 20. I told you already because I didn't want to end up in Afghanistan. So I let that expire. And then I moved back to California from New Jersey. I didn't tell you the whole sequence of events, but when I got back from Iraq, demobilization happened in Camp Lejeune, same place I mobilized from. So I actually reunited family back at 29 Palms. Tears and all, reunited with my son and my mom and my brothers and so on. But then they flew me back to Camp Lejeune, where I officially demobilized, signed out. And so my order said, send Gary back to Bakersfield. And I was like, no. My wife's up in New Jersey. She came back here while I was in Iraq because her family is here. So, and I said, no, don't send me back to Bakersfield. There's nobody there. She's up in New Jersey. And it's like, oh, okay, no problem. They changed my orders and they flew me to Philly and I reunited with her in April of 2005. So I went to work as a paramedic. I worked here for like 2 years. And then I moved back to California and I worked at the zoo at the first aid station. I found a job. That was the only job I could find in the interim. And it was at the zoo at the first aid station and the San Diego Wild Animal Park as well, 2 different locations. And that's where I actually ended my medical career, was when they told me, oh, by the way, MacKay, we don't need your services anymore at the zoo. And I'm like, what? I just flew from California. I moved the whole family. I upped everything and flew back to California because I found a job. And now you're letting me go? A year and a half later. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. 2008. Actually, it was less than a year and a half. Oh, I'm sorry. It was like, I thought you knew and whatever. I literally got pissed at my boss, and he ended up throwing his keys at me because I wouldn't listen. I walked out of the office saying, you suck. I think I said that. Anyways, I'm not proud of that. It just really pissed me off. It's like, really? I'm in California now without a job. Why did I move my family and my child into a home? Anyways, luckily my wife was a nurse. Actually, I had to tell her, I said, honey, you need to go to work full time. Why? What happened? I told her. And then I decided, you know what? I think I'm done. She's like, what? I said, yeah, I think I'm done. I don't like going to my job anymore. And I never thought I'd say that because paramedicine was incredible. It was Mr. Toad's wild ride. Yeah, nurses can go anywhere. Anywhere. You want to go to Kuwait? You want to go to UAE? You want to go to Australia? Anyways, so I wasn't for sure that I was going to end it, but I decided to take a break. She was working at a hospital there in San Diego, and here it is, 2026. And I never went back. Are you really crazy? Yeah, CNA is a certified nurse's aide. CNAs are here. And, yeah, if there's a need for them, Mike, anywhere. I mean, with the internet and the availability of travel and so on now, all you got to do is find it online. Go online. I did it for a while after I stepped away from paramedicine. I was just curious, like, I wonder if there are paramedic positions in the world. Sure enough, they're everywhere. Australia, I found it in UAE, I found it in Saudi Arabia. Go to work for a government agency, as a paramedic. Yep. Correct. Etta. RN is registered nurse, CNA. There's different names for CNAs. But for a nurse's aide, there's different titles depending on what state you're in or what country you're in, but same thing. Well, Etta, the reason why I ended up in medicine was I've always wanted to be in control of myself so that I didn't feel like I was lost or out of control. And the fear of heights was one. I had a phobia. I mean, most people are afraid of heights, but I was, one step above that. And I got into rock climbing because I wanted to overcome that. And I ended up literally making a career not a career, but a 30 plus year experience with rock climbing. But anyways, in medicine, emergencies was another aspect of my life that I didn't have control of. I didn't like that. I wanted to be the person that would know what to do when there was an emergency, if somebody was having an emergency. Not the looky-loo standing, amongst the crowd that's all gathered around and, rubbernecking, looking to see, what's going on. And so I got into medicine because of that. I wanted to be able to know what to do. And so I ended up speaking of Philippines, this was before I married a Filipino. I worked at General Dynamics, like I said, and I worked with a Filipina, a lady, and she was taking her lunch break. I was working the night shift. And I would eat with various employees I worked in a machine shop. So I would eat lunch with various people. And I went back to her department, and she had flashcards in her hand. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm studying my school." "Oh, what are you studying?" She says, "Medical terminology. I'm studying my flashcards." And I went, let me see. So she gave them to me. She goes, "You want to help me study?" And I was like, "Okay." She says, "Yeah, just show me the word and you can see the answer on the back and tell me if I get it right or wrong. Help me." And that was it. It was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I like this language. I like the prefix, suffix, the prefix, the root, and the suffix. And so that's how I ended up getting into emergency medicine. Jekyll's, still right now can't even go up a ladder. Yeah, well, heights, I still have a fear of heights, but I developed a healthy fear, meaning I knew what to do to keep myself safe. As long as I had this in place, then I knew I was okay. But there was always a phobia there. Not a phobia. There was always a fear of falling. And in rock climbing, that's not the goal. The goal is not to fall. But you have equipment you can fall back on, literally fall back on, and it saves your life. And you realize that. It's like, oh, okay. I've fallen before and I was okay. My ropes, my gear, it all worked. And it does work. Not dizzy. I just get that fear. Like, whoa, don't step off that edge. Yeah, flashcards in the Marine Corps, preparing for a meritorious program board. Cool. Yeah, flashcards they work. I encouraged my son recently, but now they've got the online flashcards, and there's no need for physical anything anymore. It's kind of sad. Everything's on a PowerPoint presentation, on a screen. Oh, I visited friends from Canada that were staying in a condo in Manila 37th floor. I'm scared to have to sit down. Oh, I bet. Yeah, there's nothing funny about being up high and what's the word? Without some kind of a barrier around you. It's not normal. It went missing around 2019 through 2021. No, not a holistic doctor. Where did they go missing? In the USA? Scientists around the UFOs and UAP topic. Oh, I have no idea about that, Etta. Sounds like a conspiracy topic. Oh, around the USA? No, never. It sounds like something, though, a friend of mine that's in the Philippines, speaking of, an elder friend of mine. As a matter of fact, I spoke with him just an hour or two ago on Messenger. It's a regular thing we do. And he's always saying, did you hear about, I was like, Link, have you been reading emails again? He's like, yeah, they sent me an email. I said, okay, stop reading those emails. Did I miss anything? Guys, LPN, yeah, LPN. Thank you, Mike. I was thinking of L, and I couldn't remember the rest of the letters. License, LPN, license, that might be different than a CNA. Practicing nurse, LPN. Oh, speaking of money, yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I did. Even though paramedicine was Mr. Toad's wild ride, it really was. It was amazing. Just incredible to learn about the human kind, period, and the bizarre stories that humans can create. I mean, real human experiences that we would walk into. Just better than a TV show, a reality TV show. But anyways, but the money wasn't there. Yeah, the paramedics didn't, I don't know about today, but just wasn't I couldn't support a family by myself as a paramedic. No. That's hence why one of the reasons I married my wife, because she made buku money. Yeah, licensed practicing nurse, LPN. There's a CNA, LPN. I've heard LVN, vocational nurse, licensed vocational nurse, LVN, I think, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways. Huh. Is that what you did, Mike? If I may ask, Mike, did you run out of money in the Philippines? Is that why you came back to go to work? I'm guessing. Good doctors. I had a great corpsman in the Marine Corps, Semper Fi doc. Who are you, Etta? Not out of money, but forward thinking. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, tell me your story in a nutshell, Etta. You got a lady profile? Are you a girl? A lady? Oh my gosh. 8,500 of us? Gosh, sounds like General Dynamics Electronics. Do you remember them? They ended up diversifying or whatever, however you want to call it, and sending their companies down to Mexico and foreign countries and laying off. I ended up leaving before the layoff. My brother was part of that. Yeah. My dad worked for them for like 25 years. And then he offered us boys, jobs. My brother and I both worked for General Dynamics Electronics. Yeah, that had no future for me. At least I couldn't find one. I was just going through the motions and doing what was there and what was available. And then eventually I found that medical interest and decided to pursue emergency medicine. Unfortunately, it didn't pay, so. Yeah, I wonder what you're going to end up doing, Mike. So you're a guy. Mm. And what Marine Corps battalion were you part of? Give me 1 second. If I freeze, I'll be right back. Now, why would I not? Okay, never mind. So what'd you do in the Marine Corps, Etta? Oh, if you haven't already, click the thumbs up. New Jersey. How about you, Crazy? Are you in the U.S. or? And what's the numeric for infantrymen? Oh, that's right. You said earlier. Sorry, Crazy. You're in, where are you? You told me. You're in, oh, you said it earlier. Oh, Alberta. Okay. We have family of husband, my sister-in-law's husband has family in Alberta, Edmonton. Never under pressure. Hey, I just said a moment ago, don't forget the the least I can ask. 13 people in the house. Awesome. Come in, come in. Are you still in the Marine Corps, Etta, or what years were you in? Shop. Doc, have a problem remembering where it's from. Oh, I get so many place names, people's hometowns in my head. I can't even remember from one day to the next sometimes where somebody's from because I've heard a dozen other locations from different people on live stream, and I juggling 12 locations. Crazy. Yeah, you missed my story, but I can talk about it again. It was a sequence of events. I had just got done chasing a lady in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was working as a paramedic in Louisiana, at St. Bernard Parish. And when I got back with my tail between my legs, I ended up residing with my mom and literally sleeping on her couch. And then eventually, I didn't know if I was going to do paramedicine anymore. I just was so depressed, and that near year in New Orleans was a crazy chapter of my life, not a very good one. And eventually, my mom motivated me and said, "You need to do something. Go back to work." And so I did. I started submitting resumes and found a job up in Central California. So I went to work up there. Before I left my mom's house, I found a brochure in a suitcase that I had from New Orleans. And it was a brochure that the lady that I was chasing had brought home. I don't know where she got it from. It was a program called APG School, or Advanced Pay Grade School. And it was an opportunity for a civilian who had a skill set. For example, you're a construction worker. You could become a CB. CB is literally the letter CB, Construction Battalion. You could become a member of the Construction Battalion in the Navy using your construction experience, civilian construction experience, and directly apply that into the Navy. That's what they do. They build stuff. And you could come in at a later age, and they would try to give you a rate and a rank equivalent to your experience, your civilian experience. And then you end up going through boot camp, et cetera, go through all the basic military requirements that are required by anybody joining the military. And then you sign a contract. And in my case, that's what I did. I went into a recruiter's trailer, just curious about this program. Went to the Army side. They said, "Oh, we can make you a medic." I said, "Thank you." I went over to the Navy side. "We can make you a corpsman." And so I eventually accepted, signed my name on the dotted line, signed an 8-year contract as a third-class petty officer in the Navy at 37 years old. I was 2 months before my 37th birthday when I went into that recruiter's trailer. Ooh, right now? Awesome. Cool. For this for this live stream? Let's see if I can break that one viral live stream. It went up to, what, 15,000 people? And I was like, oh my gosh. But anyways, yeah, so that's how I ended up in the Navy. I signed a part-time reserve contract. That's what the reserves is, a part-time job in the military. 8-year contract, 1999 to 2007. So I was 37 years old. I got out when I was 45. And I had the opportunity to stay in 20 and get a retirement, but I didn't. I ended up getting deployed to Iraq. And when I got back, I decided, okay, that's enough. I can't do this at 45 years old. Humping around the mountains of Afghanistan with the Marines. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life up until I was 53 years old because of my rock climbing experience. I was lean and mean. I really was. I was in the best shape of my life at 50. And so I could have kicked around the hills of Afghanistan, but it was not a very safe proposition. And I said, okay, I'm a new husband. I'm a new daddy. I can't do this anymore. So I got out, 2007. Hoorah, Etta. Doc is 49 now. For the last 14 years. Yeah, you're welcome, Crazy. That was the story that I shared earlier. I think I went off on tangents a little more earlier, but that was it in a nutshell. Yeah, what I was just listening to, I subscribe to a few channels that are doing super, super well. And a lot of them are ex-military, SEALs, Special Forces, whatever. And they have a podcast or whatever they're doing. And they were talking about when they were over there. And I went, oh my gosh, they were there the same years I was. And they're talking about how many years it's been. It's been 20 years since I got home. And I thought, dang, has it been that long already? 20 years? I was just sharing photos recently, digging up old photos. Here, I'll show them now that I'm not on a live stream site, so I can't share videos or pictures. But I can turn the camera around and at least show you the photos. Here's a stack of photos, some memories that I had from Iraq. I'll just turn the camera around and show you here. Okay. There I was coming home, actually. I was in the back of the 7-ton. Oop, I got to get it to focus here. It's my Wiley X safety glasses, my Petzl headlamp that I painted the lens red, and all my body armor. The buildings in the background, those were the buildings we stayed in. That was our fob. That was one of 3 buildings. Was that the dinosaur storm? What the heck? Yeah, a group. My wife won't let me have that anymore. Who's that handsome guy in the passenger seat of the airplane that's flying us home? Yeah. Oh, here I am in the rain one evening. We're not supposed to have cameras and we're not supposed to be taking flash photos. And I did both. Wow, speaking of rockets, my commanding officer and I both were going out to the dump, and the gray water pit that they had dug outside the wire there at the fob, and all of a sudden, whistling just over our heads, and then explosions in the distance. We're like, "Whoa!" We both started running like crazy back to the building. Here I am just posing at the mortar pit. Those are 60 millimeter mortars. And there's 3 charges on that one. 1, 2, 3, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who's that's some Iraqi interpreter. He was relieving us. They made me a killer breakfast. That was hobis, eggs, potatoes, bell peppers. Hobis is like the naan, the Indian naan bread, flatbread. It's all broken up and mixed in that mix. That was a killer breakfast. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, you mean, can I shoot with a gun? I can still shoot. I still go to the range. The Navy taught me well. There we are on the airplane. Oh, this is first class, by the way. At least on that plane. I got first class. I got in trouble before I came home. I'll tell you that story maybe. And I got assigned the working party, which kind of re-injured my my rotator cuff injury that I rehabilitated the whole 7 months in Iraq. And then when I got in trouble and got assigned to the work party, I re-injured it. But this was the reward for the working party was we got to fly first class on the way home, even though I was still in trouble. I was assigned a Marine Corps MP at the airport in Germany. And I couldn't go anywhere. And I remember the MP saying, "Sucks to be you, Doc." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Yup." He says, "You're mine." And I went, "Oh my gosh." So I was on restriction at the airport in Germany. Everyone's wondering, what did you do? What did you do? Hoorah, Etta. All right. Oh, and here's the whole group here. Here's the overseas foreign workers that I worked with. That's Tefik in the back in the purple. He's from Albania. There's Ali there on my left. He's the Iraqi interpreter. He now lives in Michigan, USA. I reunited with him back in 2014. Tears and all. Unbelievable. That man right there, that man, Ali, to my right or to the left of me in the photo, he lives in Michigan now. I couldn't believe it when he told me that. I drove to Michigan with my family and reunited with him. And then he took the bus and train to meet me here in New Jersey, and we went to New York City together. I worked with that man for 7 months. Unreal. Tears, everything when I met that guy again. I used to go and drink coffee and chai and eat food with him every night at 8:30, right there in that building. Can you notice the photos in the background by any chance? Yes, there was plenty of that. Who says Iraqis don't have nude female pictures? And that's Islam in the green. He's from Yugoslavia. There's one more, and he's not in the picture. He's probably taken the picture. That is Ali and Safwan. Safwan was the other Iraqi interpreter. He was the Tom Selleck of the two. He was a handsome, tall, dark, and handsome Iraqi guy with a mustache. Yeah. Okay. Here the M1 crew is relieving us. We're going home, and they're coming on board. So they gave me a tour of their tank and let me crawl down inside, and they showed me their whole setup. That's a M1 Abrams. Drinking coffee with the guys. Oh, and here's one of the fellow corpsmen. He was teaching me boxing while I was there. All these corpsmen were good to go. Fit as all heck. All right, let's see here. Oh, here's the helicopter. Before the helicopter ride that about made us all puke. That was a CH-53 ride from Kuwait into Al-Assad. That was the most horrible roller coaster ride I've ever experienced. Yep. And that's on the way home. Hurry up and wait in the rocks. Hoorah, Mike. I'm reading it. I'm reading what you're saying. You know what? I have the names on the t-shirt, remember? I have that, I was just watching that live stream. I should break it out. I'll go get it in the bedroom. And yeah, I got HM1 Arocha, Doc Alonzo. He's a Filipino kid. He was the youngest of us all. We were all in our 40s, and Alonso was 27. And he was the highest rank because he had more time in his rate than any of us. So we were actually under him. He's 27 and we were all over 40. That's just another corpsman. He didn't work in our workspace. He was at another location. But that was at 29 Palms, having a beer when we got home. Oh, the sea stallion. Oh my gosh, lots, Bobby. In tears, most of them, writing those letters. Yep. But you know, they had internet, so we had access to laptop and landlines. So we did get the call and and talk. But lots of downtime and lots of time writing letters. Yep. There's Islam from Yugoslavia. And that's a 9mm on my left leg. I'm a right-hander, but I'm a left-handed shooter. So, a rock climbing wall. Speaking of rock climbing, I built this rock climbing wall while I was there. I had rock climber companies, indoor rock climbing companies, send me plastic holds, and I had my mom and family send me Bondo, car Bondo, and that was the adhesive that it secures these things to cement. So I ended up literally asking my commanding officer if it was okay to build this wall. He decided to make it part of the Marine Welfare and Recreation, MWR. So I had this rock climbing wall built for the guys if they had time, and not too many had time. I was the only one that had time, so I was traversing this wall more than anybody. And notice that I don't have my weapon on my hip. Oops. It's over there somewhere where it shouldn't be. Hopefully somebody's got a hold of it. You're never supposed to. How many feet away, Etta? Keep your weapon how far? No more than, it's a test question. All right, some random lady that two of us corpsmen decided to take photos with. She's an officer in the United States Navy. Oh, and here's my eldest boy. We're both in tears, or at least we just got done wiping our tears when we reunited there at 29 Palms. Mom is from Bangkok, Thailand. His mom. That was my first wife. So he's got that Asian persuasion. That's Jason. Yeah. Oh, did you notice the cover? Yeah, see that cover right there that I'm wearing? It's right there. There it is. Look familiar? Okay, where was I? I dropped the page I was on. Oh, and then here off the military. That's me at LAX before I proposed to my wife. And there we are. She's 8 months pregnant when I got home. That's here in New Jersey. That baby in that belly is now going to be 21 here next month. There we are. Her sisters, Genevieve, my wife in the middle, and Geraldine on the other side. Jen is in the black, Geraldine's in the yellow there. And then another pregnant. And that's it. All right, Mike. Good to see you back in Illinois, safe and sound. Awesome. Yep. Sorry. All right, I'm back. So a little blast from the past there. Yeah, you know what? Gosh, I'll be transparent with you, but I get emotional when I see some of those photos. It's the weirdest feeling. But it's because of Iraq. Iraq is a horrible, horrible place. At least I should say, when I was in Iraq, in that capacity, was a very horrible place. But when you get back home, and years later, when you start talking about it, gosh, it's not unusual to just be in tears about it. Hence the reason why when I reunited with my friend, my Iraqi friend, we were just crying babies. Snot the whole 9 yards. It was wild. To reunite with somebody that you went through, laying on the floor looking at each other after being hit by mortars and bizarre, being out on the road in the city of heat and same crap happening. And all you're trying to do is do your job. It's like you're not there to, to seek and destroy. You're just waiting for someone to get sick or injured. And that was your job. And you kicked around where they kicked around. And yet you're like, what in the world am I doing? What if I get hurt? How am I going to provide medical support? And my whole concept in my head was surround yourself with Marines, Gary. Surround yourself with them. Literally, surround yourself with them. Just put yourself in the middle of them. And if you got someone to work on, bring 2 or 3 of them with you and have them put a perimeter around you while you're trying to figure out how to get the guy to safety so you can do something with them. It never happened, but it was just, constantly thinking, where am I going to, oops, did I lose the connection? Yeah, it's you can talk about it. We can talk about it, but you really they really can't comprehend. All they can comprehend is what they saw on TV or they heard somebody else talk about. But otherwise, it's okay. I understand why they don't understand, because I didn't understand either. Before I went, I had no idea what it was like I didn't know what the barometric change in pressure change in the air, how a bomb, unless unless you were part of that here in the States and you practiced it, and you were out in the field and you heard and you experienced that. But I didn't. The biggest ordnance that I was ever around was what, a 12 gauge shotgun, my dad brought me up with, or a loud boom, somewhere in the distance from something. I can't even really compare it to anything. And then to go with that limited knowledge, never been assigned to a Marine Corps battalion, and now go out with them in the most heavily mortared and rocketed place in Iraq at that time. And then to experience that is like, welcome to Iraq. Hoorah, Jesse. You're welcome. You too, Etta. Whoever you are. Howard! Hey, I didn't see you come in. No. Shopkeeper. Oh, I thought that was Howard Clegg. Everybody meet Howard. Howard's a great young man there in, where are you again, Howard? I ask you every time. You're in the Midwest. Where are you? Missouri? God, I'm guessing. It's like, what the? I'm reading your comment, Shop. I'll comment. I'll answer it here in a second. I'm reading your comment too, Bobby. That's cool. About your friend in Vietnam. Howard, they helped us get the power plant in Nezri up and running. The Romanians had the spare parts. I love it. I love it. Oh wait, I'm just going back here. I'm talking and you guys are commenting. I'm missing everything. Ah, there you go, Howard. I didn't know that, or did you tell me that already? I served along Romanians in Iraq. I'm scrolling back. Sorry, Bobby. I read that. Jason, is that guy who said he was going to join? No. Jason's my eldest son. He's the one that guy put on a prayer list for me. Oh, imagine the technology we have today. Edis, wait. Eating, God, I got to scroll way back. You guys are talking and I'm... Okay. Do you remember all the names of the people you work with there, Doc? That was the question I was going to answer. Or no, any weird dreams. That was what I was going to answer. But let me go back here. When you said need more 80s, you talking about millimeter mortars? Wait. Gosh darn it, I keep... I'm catching up, guys. Hold on. Yeah, have you seen those guys recently or talk with them? One guy in particular that I reunited with, I'll tell you his story. Knew what we were in standby for. What's Yat-Yas? Y-A-T-Y-A-S. I don't know that mnemonic. Oh, there, you asked about Romanian soldiers. Gosh, I keep clicking on something and it takes me away. Awesome Machines, M1. Do you remember the names of all the people you work with? C Stallion. I wrote a lot of letters to my children. Right. Oh my gosh. I keep touching and it takes me to. Well, you guys are all talking to each other, it looks like, as well, so that's cool. Howard, what did you do over in Iraq? Were you civilian contractor? Or you told me the story before. And Mike, I know you had to go. Oh, Howard, do you remember if they was from Black Scorpions? Okay, gentlemen, give him one. Give him a talk about the old days. Used to have a friend in Vietnam. I'm catching back up here. Oh, Anaconda. Wow. Yeah, that's the truth. You can't survive without being crazy or laughing in combat. It's the truth. That is true. Gosh, thank God for somebody that's a joker, or somebody says something. There, you made me flip the switch mentally. Oh my gosh. Come on, Etta, who are you, dude? I didn't work with you, did I? I haven't met somebody from 123. I've spoke with a few corpsmen. One guy lives in Arizona. But other than that, Marines, I haven't. I've tried to get a hold of one guy. I wrote a story and a short video about this guy that I had an experience with. He almost drowned in Iraq. And I've always wanted to reunite with him and just ask him about that experience and what he remembers and his side of it. But I couldn't. I tried contacting 123 Marines in Houston, Texas, and really didn't get anywhere with that. Okay, I'm finally caught back up. You were Army targeting officer. Okay, built target list and coordinated fire support. I'll be dang. Mr. Orange, no, I was a Navy corpsman. What is a Medi orange fuse? What is that? Oh, he was a medic orange fuse. Okay, I got you. I was like, wait, yeah, I got it. The only time I actually got to try, keyword try, to perform advanced life support when I was in Iraq was at the very end. I did attend to a few Iraqis, part of the supposed Iraqi National Guard, INGs. They had their own building, their own little fob. I shouldn't say fob. They had their own residence outside the wire. And I would go over there every now and then to give classes, continuing education, first aid classes to those INGs, and went out on the range a few times with them. That was nuts. But otherwise, what was I saying? Oh my gosh. Oh, about advanced medicine, opportunity to do some. At the very end, they brought in a random, it was like this Humvee appeared out of nowhere and drove in, and they took out this stretcher of this guy that looked dead. And, his arms and his legs are hanging off the side of the gurney, and he wasn't awake, and he looked pale as a ghost, and he was an Iraqi guy. And we're asking him, well, who's this? Who are you guys? They're like, we got a bad guy. And I went, oh, bring him in here. So they brought him into the BAS, the battle aid stations, the emergency room, basically, very primitive one. And he was riddled with like 16 rounds. I was like, this guy don't look like a happy camper. He literally was just riddled with like 16 rounds, M16 rounds, from his neck down to his feet. Like, what do you do with this guy? And he was still breathing about one every 10 seconds. And then I'm still counting. Like, okay, this guy ain't gonna survive. And then, I tried to intubate him. I tried to get inside of his mouth and put a tube into his trachea, and he was still awake enough to have super muscle tone, and so he wasn't letting me get in his mouth. It was just it's an automatic response to just bite down or to resist, when you put something, like if you're awake, if I put my finger in your mouth, what would you do? You'd probably punch me. Yeah, the body doesn't like, somebody putting their finger in your throat. Well, I wasn't just putting my finger, I was putting a tool, an instrument into his throat. And he didn't like that, and he would spit out and cough, and I was like, okay, I guess I ain't doing this. So I tried to put a tube down his nose. You can access the trachea through the nose. It's not very comfortable, not at all. Matter of fact, it's very traumatizing. Makes most people bleed because of the soft tissue going through the nares into the oropharynx. That's the back of your throat. And then that connects down into either your stomach through your esophagus or your windpipe or your trachea into your chest, your lungs. So I was trying to nasally intubate him and put a tube down his nose. And I couldn't get that to seat very well. So I ended up doing nothing for the guy. And the commanding officer was trying to do what they call a cut down. They were trying to access his vasculature, his veins. And because when somebody's dying like that, when they're about dead, you lose circulation. And so all your vessels in your body, from your top of your head to your toes, they deflate. They're not full of blood anymore. The heart isn't pumping. So it's like any other hose. It doesn't expand. It just lays flat. So you can't access their veins with a needle. And that's the whole key, you need to access their airway. That's number one. Most important, their airway. And then their circulation. Part of your circulation is your circulatory system, your veins or your arteries. Well, the commanding officer was trying to do a cut down, and he was trying to access an artery somewhere in his neck, I think, or his chest. I think it was chest, below his clavicle. And he wasn't even successful doing that. So we ended up just calling the guy, and we pronounced him dead. But that was really the only really critical intervention opportunity that we had the whole entire 7 months that I was there. And that was more in a closed, controlled environment. It wasn't out in the field, while, in harm's way. Although, you know what I mean. We weren't being shot at or anything like that. It was in a building. It was more like a MASH unit, if you want to compare it, I guess. That's exactly what it was. And we had very limited capability. If I had intubated him and was successful, and if he would have accessed, the vasculature and started a line, a IV line, and, hung some fluids for the guy, he wouldn't have stayed with us. The whole priority for him, he needs an operating room. And there's no operating room at FOB Heat. It's a primitive, if that, emergency room. So he needs to be transported. Well, he didn't even make it that far. So much for his operating room visit. He never reached it. So, But that was, we were rubbing our hands together every time we had an opportunity to do something. It's a morbid part of our job to, like rub your hands together and say, let's get some. It's like, that means you need to be hurt or injured in order for me to do my job. But that's what I thrive on, and we do it well. And that's, and if you're not sick or injured, what am I doing? Nothing. I smoked Benson and Hedges Menthol 100 lights in Iraq, and I don't even smoke. It's like, what else are you going to do? I whittled wood to a point. Nothing else to do. I sat in the porta-john, took off my cover, that cover that I was showing earlier, and I got out my 9mm and popped the magazine out, and I pushed the rounds into my cover, in my lap. I wasn't even in there to take a dump or a pee. I was just in there to get out of sight, out of mind. And I would push all the rounds out of the mag into my hat, and then I'd put them one by one back in the magazine. And then I'd come out when it was getting too hot and sweaty, and I'd go about my way. You threw tomahawks. I know. Oh my gosh, wait a minute. Etta, who are you? How do you know about my sandbag story? But you're right, though. Marine Corps, that's what Marine Corps, one of their best jobs, what they do best, other than shooting. They fill sandbags and they dig latrines. You lifted with the brothers. There you go. That's true. They lift weights. They're working out. You're working out. You're filling the sandbags. That's true. That's it. Yeah, military is not wasting helicopters or resources on an enemy who is dying. That's true. Yep. Yeah, it's true. Especially, I have my own little play on, or my own theory about combat, those going to combat. I watch these poor guys, yourself, for example. I'm not calling you a poor guy, but I watch what they go through, seeing a dead body for the very first time. And I think, gosh, man, they shouldn't even be there if they've never experienced that before. They need to, I thought about it. I said, you know what? Maybe that could be part of their training. They need to rotate, not just Marines. They need to rotate guys in the field through a hospital ICU or an operating room, and make that part of their training. Seriously. These guys that get back home that have seen this for the very first time, they're affected for the rest of their life. That's what they talk about. They talk about what they saw and they experienced for the very first time, and it haunts them. And I'm just sitting there going, it's like I'm shedding tears for them. It's like, you know what? They have no business having experienced that for the very first time and bringing that home with them. I worked that for 20 years. And it was normal. It was part of my job. It was like I said it earlier, it was Mr. Toad's wild ride being in medicine. It was the most unbelievable, jaw-dropping experience, one of the most, other than childbirth, watching my kids being born, and my dad, sharing the gospel with my dad, to watch the human body, the cycle of life, from giving birth to a newborn to watching somebody die, is unbelievable. It literally is an experience of a lifetime to see that. And to know, remember I said earlier, I was out of control. And I didn't like that. I didn't like being out of control in those situations. So I wanted to know what to do. So I didn't feel that way. And I got into medicine. And it just opened my eyes to a world that I was lost to. As most of you. It is. It's the most, it's wild. It's so rewarding, jaw-dropping to learn about how you function every day and things you take for granted. To know it, to know it intimately is incredible. And so when I see that out in the field, my response to that would make you guys think I was nuts. Because it's bizarre. I detach myself from you. I had an issue when I was in Iraq, and I had to approach my first class about it because my fellow shipmates were, one guy in particular was calling me what did he call him? What was the name he used? I was mingling with the enemy. And he didn't say mingling. That's what he was comparing me to. Somebody that confided with the enemy. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And it was because I didn't spend time with them. I didn't spend time with them and play cards, although I did, but they weren't part of my unit. I mean, they were, but when it came time to spending personal time, I detached myself from those guys. And there was a reason for that. And the reason was because, in the military it's a little different. Esprit de corps, camaraderie, all that, I get it. Having each other's back. Believe you me, if one of my corpsmen or my shipmates got hurt or injured, do you think I would know what to do? Of course I would, because it's part of my job. It's what I do best. But if I get to know who you are, like intimately, your wife, your children, do you know how much harder it is going to be for me if something happens to you? I don't want to know you. It's nothing personal. It's protection. I don't want to go through that. Been there, done that. It's not fun. But when it comes to having your back and helping you if you need it, of course I'm going to do that. That's what I do for a living. But a lot of these guys in the military, a lot of the guys that I work with, they didn't have the experience I had. And I'm not bragging about that. It's just I had years of experience from the civilian world. And I brought that into the military. And a lot of these guys, they'd never seen that before. They worked in a controlled setting in a hospital. Or they practiced medicine. Or they did standbys, per se, with the Marines out in the field. They're not getting sick or injured or hurt. Well, they might be. They might be getting lumps, bumps, and bruisers out there in 29 Palms. But they're not treating gunshot wounds. Because you don't do that in practice. You don't shoot each other. They're practicing. I was doing the real thing out in the field. I was treating gunshot wounds to the head and seeing it. Giving birth to babies, treating all of the above, from pediatrics to 99-year-old men. The eldest patient I had was 105. He was born in 1898. I had to look it up. President McKinley was the president when he was born. That's in a history book. Anyways, you get it? I had this experience, and yet I learned that we didn't spend more than 30 minutes with a patient. That was like the average amount of time I would spend with a patient was 30 minutes. And then we dropped them off and I never saw them again. And so I didn't get to know people personally. Even my partner that I worked with, we had our own agenda. I had my family. I had a wife and kids. So when I was downtime, I was calling them on the phone, taking care of business with my wife, just talking. But we didn't spend time side by side with each other for 7 months, in a 1/8 mile barbed wire. And I decided that it was to my best interest if I disassociated myself with my shipmates when I wasn't working. And I spent time with the Iraqi interpreters and the guy from Albania and the guy from Yugoslavia. I spent most of my time, the entire 7 months, with them, not with my shipmates. So you can see they started, the scuttlebutt, the rumors started, the chismis about MacKay, what MacKay's doing over there with the enemy. And when I heard that, I was like, what a dick. That one guy in particular, I won't say his name. I already mentioned his name. But I had to approach my first class and tell him, listen, I'm not disassociating myself because I don't want to be part of you guys or that I don't care about you guys. But I don't want to get to know who you are personally and your wife and your children. And here's why. And I told him. And he understood, sort of. And I said, I'm sorry, but, if you need me, I'll be there. And so that's what I did. I don't know if that makes any sense. So anyways, yeah, back to the my mindset with sick and injured is morbid. It's true. Speaking of laughing and high-fiving, we did all that after calls. You're like, whoa. That guy just had his intestines outside of his body ripped open from a gunshot wound or, a bullet in the head or amputation or, I'm saying the worst calls, but beheadings. I had a few of them. Automobile accidents. I got one picture in my file box back there of a person's scalp. You're like, what? I think, yep, it's right back there in my file box. It's like, what the heck do I still have that for? I've kind of forgotten about it, and it's back there. I took it and didn't realize I kept it, and it's still back there. It's of a woman's scalp in the back seat of a vehicle. Anyway, so no wonder these kids come back and they're going through traumatic mental illness. Gosh. Yes, I do. No, I don't have it. I have a picture of it. Military relationships, are complicated when you get out. Yeah. It's we made a difference, Etta. That's the biggest. That's what we concluded. I was taught this, but it made sense. The most sense is most of the calls that we treat, they're not emergencies. People think they are. It's an emergency in your eyes, but when I see it, no, it's not an emergency. But it's okay. I got you. We take the problems off of you, and it's in my hands now. We always say, it's not your emergency, talking to me. It's not your emergency, Gary. And it's not. It's not my emergency. It's theirs. And it's our job to take that emergency off of them and make them realize it's okay. So we make a difference more than we save lives. That's what I did most of my 20 years. I made a difference. How many times did I bring somebody back from dead to living? It doesn't happen, guys. It doesn't happen. I shouldn't say that. Very, 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 very rarely does that happen. Cardiac arrest patients, for example, those that are dead when we get there, literally, they don't have a heartbeat. The rhythm on the monitor doesn't support life. But we have to work on them because they're warm and dead. Here's another morbid part of my job. If they're cold and dead, they're dead. It's rigor mortis starts to set in and so on. But if they're warm, literally to the touch, if they're warm when we get there, we work them. It's because they're warm. Even if their monitor says nothing and they're not breathing, they're warm, or they tell us, oh, we just saw him an hour ago and I came back in to check on grandma, grandpa, and they weren't breathing in the rocking chair. So I called 911. So there's a 2-hour window maybe from when they saw him last and when we got there. So the body's going to be warm. So if they're warm and dead, we're typically going to work on them. Do we bring them back? No, we don't. Do we practice? Oh, absolutely. And it's fun. It's another morbid part of the job. It's fun to get all that in action. Everybody's doing something. I'm intubating. Somebody started an IV. Someone's pushing medications. Somebody's got them on the monitor. Firefighters are figuring out how to extricate them out of the house. They're getting the ball rolling when it comes to, the logistics of getting them from point A to point B. The police officers are outside directing traffic. Helicopters coming in the air. It's cool when all that's in motion. And when it all comes together and everybody gets the patient where they need to go. But they don't survive. It just doesn't. It's very rare. Or if they do, they end up living on a life support, and the family's got to make a decision. And sometimes they're on that life support forever because the family doesn't want to let them go. And they're literally just being supported. Their brain's dead, but their heart keeps beating. That happens. You can put a bullet through somebody's head. It doesn't stop the heart. It affects their breathing. So you put a tube in their trachea and you put them on a machine and you breathe for them for years and years. And you keep their heart beating. And their skin starts to deteriorate because they've been laying in bed and they can't get up. So you got to roll them and treat their wounds from laying in bed. They're called pressure sores. I'm telling you, the part of medicine is bizarre. And you get to see part of life that you just never knew existed. So I was craving, like you Marines are, you're going, let's get some, and the big roar comes out of all you guys. Well, we were kind of doing the same, but our get some was a little different than your get some. You get some and then bring them to us. And then we get to play. Yeah. Yeah. Hoorah. A lot of, here, speaking of, like the injuries that guys suffer, in combat, it just goes to show you that it's hard to kill. Here's something that my preceptor, my teacher out in the field when I was going through paramedic school, he told me it's hard to kill somebody. And it really is. And a good example of that is these vets that are surviving. It's because the injuries that they receive are not, they don't kill a body. There's like three places you need to injure or destroy that will kill somebody. That's the head, the chest, and the abdomen. You can cut their legs off and they survive. You can cut their arms off, they survive. And that's living proof. But now they've got, psychological illness for the rest of their life. But it's hard to kill somebody. It really is. You think, I just shoot them in the head. Well, I've treated many gunshot wounds to the head, and they're still living. I mean, they're not alive today, but they were alive when I got there, and they were alive when I dropped them off at the hospital. It doesn't stop the heart. It doesn't stop their breathing. It affects their breathing, a bullet wound to the head. But I can do something for that. I'll put a intubation tube into your trachea and breathe for you. So now you're not breathing, but I am. I'm breathing for you. Does that do anything for the hole in the head? No, not at all. Xiao Fu. It's reality. We were talking about that, Xiao. About my mindset, and what I talk about is bizarre to the layperson. Or as you put it, this is hard talk. But for me, it's shop talk. There you go. Yeah. See, and that is our emphasis in medicine, is the chest, the head, the head, chest, and abdomen. That's trauma. That what we learn. There's three areas that we check to determine whether or not somebody's critical. It's the head, chest, and the abdomen. The leg, the other leg, the arms, yeah, they cause bleeding. They can be traumatic. You can die from, an arterial bleed, an uncontrolled arterial bleed in the leg and the arms and so on and so forth. But it's treatable. And again, like you said, you got a triple amputee that's, doing well. Because losing a leg doesn't kill somebody, or it doesn't necessarily kill somebody. But yeah, anyways, back to that trauma. What a lot of those that experienced trauma or combat or all of the above, I can see why they're suffering. It's like don't know if it's true or not, but I was always told less than 2% of the population does what we do in the medical field. So it's not like it's for everybody. It's not. I had a classmate that did well, 90 plus percentile, in school. But when it came to the field, he just couldn't cut it. And he realized, you know what? This ain't for me. But yet he did so well in school. And we thought, he was one of the better students. And he was. But he ended up being a dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher in the communications center. And that's what he did after paramedic school. He dropped out at the very end, the field time, and he became a dispatcher. You're talking, Bobby. I'm trying to, you repeated, I think I read that before. Yeah, you did. You copied and pasted here. When you say a lot of times they do come back to life, who are you talking about? You're talking about combat vets, or you're talking about just people in general, like cardiac arrest patients? GTV. all the way from Palawan, Philippines. Maraming salamat. So anyways, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up and call it a night. Oh, I see what you're saying, Bobby. Yeah, but like I said, that's the exception, not the rule. You see that too much on TV. Yeah, don't believe everything you see on TV. Yeah, cardiac arrest patients don't do well. It's called dying. People die. People die every day. That's another topic. We'll talk about that another time. But I'm glad those three topics are part of the live stream because they all go hand in hand, and we can talk about one, and then it'll flow right into another. Hoorah, Bobby. Praise God for the military and medical. You too. Hoorah, Etta. Yeah, you're welcome. If I don't have any regular schedule right now. I used to, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I'm trying to establish something again. I'm not quite there yet, but just look for me. Be sure and subscribe and hit the like, the thumbs up, and that way when I'm on again or I post something, you'll get the notification and you'll see me again. Yeah, Bobby. Here, believe me, having done, editing and some videos in the last 6+ years, I've learned that the magic of editing can do a whole lot for a program. And so you can turn a story into whatever you want the story to tell. And that's television for you. So. Yeah, it was good. Thanks, guys, gals, for coming. GTV, thank you for popping in. Are you live streaming GTV? Well, here, as I have done in the past, I'll put on my cover so I can end this like I used to end my. But as you were, guys, I'll see you next time. Later, guys.